Does this work? Yes. Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Envision 2050 launch. This is exciting. It's great to see people here and also on Zoom. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We're very excited to get started with this process. I also want to welcome a representative from Representative Mom's office and also thank the many members of the MPO who are also in attendance tonight and the many Northern Middlesex Council of Government staff who are here this evening, either here in this room physically or outside, helping people to get inside. I'm Jennifer Raitt. I'm the executive director here, and in case you're not familiar with what we do, NIMCOG is the regional planning agency. We serve the 9 municipalities in and around Lowell, and that means that we have also a 27-member council that serves our entire body. In addition to our work advancing regional transportation initiatives and transportation funding throughout the region, which we're going to talk about obviously tonight, we work on housing, economic development, master planning, sustainability and environmental planning, and a whole host of other issues in our agency. Tonight, we'll introduce you to the planning process that NIMCOG will be using to create the new long-range transportation plan for the entire region. The RTP is a unique document that is updated every 4 years, and it describes how the region plans for and improves the transportation system into the future, while also addressing the existing needs and anticipated growth in our region. The plan is also key to uniting our housing, economic development, and climate goals across the region, and it can set the table for additional partnerships and funding opportunities. The process that you'll learn more about tonight will be both educational and some interactive elements. You'll learn about the extensive research, data collection and analysis, community discussions, and public engagement that we also have planned. We anticipate that many partners and stakeholders will participate with us as we move this forward and develop the plan. First, we'll hear from Jessica Boulanger, who's the transportation planner here at NIMCOG, who will describe the RTP, our goals for engagement, and the actions to come. We look forward to working with all of you on this important plan, and thank you again for attending tonight. I'll be popping in a little bit later to facilitate some questions at the end of this dialogue. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, thanks for your patience. As Jenny said, my name is Jessica Boulanger. I'm a transportation planner with the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments. And this slide here, just a little housekeeping before we get started. On the left-hand side, we ask that folks in person, if you'd like to participate, we ask that you raise your hand, and then once called upon, please introduce yourself and then state your comment or question. The next slide is instructions for the virtual folks that there's instructions there on how you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And once you raise your hand, our host for the virtual guest will actually reach out to you and ask you to introduce your name and then speak. Next. So for tonight, we're going to start off with an overview of the regional transportation plan. We're going to discuss the goals and visions for the plan. We're going to review the previously programmed projects. We're going to review our community engagement goals and strategies. We'll have a brief discussion and then also touch upon our timeline and questions and next steps. So I'd like to start off by asking everyone to think of what the word envision means to you. I'm asking for one word on when you think of the word envision, what comes to mind. And we're going to start with comments from people at home. We ask that you write that in the chat. And then folks in person, you may raise your hand.
Can I ask actually, first of all, can the Zoom participants hear? Did we correct that, or are you still having trouble hearing?
It's pretty quiet, but I can hear.
Okay.
I cannot.
Oh, okay. One second, please. We're getting a few chat messages that people couldn't hear. It's like some people are having trouble hearing the speaker up there. Might be just microphone a little bit
How
louder.
about now? Better? Folks at home, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So the question was, we're asking folks at home to enter in the chat. What does the word envision mean to you? And also participants in person. We're going to start taking questions from folks at home. You're welcome to raise your hand. What word comes to mind when you think of envision? Ma'am, please stand and introduce yourself. Yeah, just one word. Okay, a few words is okay. Active, okay. Planning. Keeping along the line. Thank you.
Now we have some coming in on the chat. Imagine engineering a vision of a new future state, a prosperous future planning, and what we anticipate we will see or would like to see in the future.
Those are all really great words. This is really the reason behind why we named this plan the Envision 2050, is that we'd like to reimagine transportation in our region through the year 2050. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the three funding sources for transportation. We rely upon these three funding sources that come from the federal government: the Unified Planning Program, the Transportation Improvement Plan Program, and also the Envision 2050, which is our long-range regional transportation plan. And these three funding sources comprise how we are funded as an agency. So right now we're working on one plan or one portion of our funding source. Envision 2050 is our comprehensive vision for the future of transportation in the NEMCOG region. By projecting and planning for anticipated growth over a period of 30 years, this plan will establish a foundation for cost-effective, energy-efficient, and equitable transportation options for all users. Some of the topic areas that we plan to touch upon with this plan are economic vitality, safety, infrastructure, environmental and climate resiliency, accessibility and mobility options, connectivity, and equity, with an emphasis on communities that have been historically marginalized. Next slide. This plan will build upon our existing regional transportation plan. And the plan goals have been listed on the left along with our action items. The first goal is improving safety conditions, and we will do that by encouraging the use of supportive bike and pedestrian infrastructures in our municipalities. Our next goal is encouraging mode shift, and we plan on improving regional trail connections throughout the region, reducing environmental impacts by recommending projects that support emission reductions, fostering transportation by promoting mobility options that support a diverse set of users. Lastly, we will be identifying gaps in our existing transportation network. In doing so, we will be reviewing transportation-related challenges near transit services and employment centers. Next slide. I'll be passing it over to Justin Howard.
Thank you, Jessica. So, just to take a step back,
this plan must be financially constrained, and we'll be determining the proposed federal allocations for our region in early 2023. And what I want to do here today is just talk about some of the previous projects that have been identified in our previous regional transportation plans. And the reason reason we want to talk about this is we want to show that this plan is not just something that goes on a desk in a shelf. It's something that brings about actions. And so you'll see on this slide there are several different projects that you'll see, and hopefully you see familiar ones. Intersection improvement projects we'll recommend in our previous plan. Things like the Boston Road and Concord Road project and intersection improvement project in Chelmsford, which is scheduled to be complete in early 2023. And other projects, corridor improvement projects, you may be familiar with Route 3A in Billerica, Route 113 in Dunstable, Nashua Road in Dracut. These are all projects that are under construction now or plan to be under construction in the near future. And other things includes the bridge improvement projects. One of the bridges that we had recommended in the previous regional transportation plan is Beaverbrook Road, and you see a picture of it right here. It's Beaverbrook Road bridge over Beaverbrook in Westford, and that if you're familiar with it, that provides a vital connection between Westford and I believe it's Groton or Littleton, I believe. Excellent. Some of the other examples of projects that have been programmed in the regional transportation plan in earlier versions. The Yankee Doodle bike path in Billerica was actually identified in our previous plan, but it's not slated for construction until after this new plan goes into effect. So you will see it in the Envision 2050 plan. Some of the other ones, the LRTA, because the LRTA is a recipient of Federal Transit Administration funds, and they are part of the MPO. So their projects are also included in our regional transportation plan. And you see various improvement type projects, replacement of their bus fleet, any kind of aging fleet. They're actually looking to move into more electric buses in the near future. So we'll be reviewing that in the regional transportation plan as well. Facility upgrades at all of the LRTA facilities, including Gallagher Terminal, the Hale Street facility, things like that. And also the LRTA receives federal funding for operations and maintenance, and that will continue to be a recommendation in this plan. And just one note for anything that's recommended in the regional transportation plan, there is a coordination with the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, which you may be familiar with. If a project is to be programmed in the TIP, it must also be identified in our long-range regional transportation plan. So it is important that we have feedback from the community, from our communities on how we approach the recommendations in this plan. So next slide, please. So thinking of that, so when we set out to determine our engagement strategy, we need to begin with, what are the goals of our outreach effort? And one of those is we really wanted to educate people about the process, and we want people to understand what we're talking about here with this plan and why we're doing it. So once we figure that out, figured out that education is really a goal of this outreach effort, we want to make another goal to identify and engage with people who who work and who visit our region. So this is where our community relationships come in. And we really want to lead into a third goal, which is documenting, listening, and building kind of a consensus around transportation concerns, transportation issues within the region. So how do we do that? Well, we utilize diverse outreach techniques, and I'll talk about some of the strategies that we are employing as part of this effort in our next slide. Some of the other goals, we really want to build that momentum for equitable transportation, and we want to try to reach as many people as possible as part of the outreach, so so we can just really develop a really good plan. So next slide, please. So these are some of the community engagement strategies built to achieve some of the goals that are outlined in our community outreach strategy. So tonight, of course, the kickoff meeting. We also have a survey that we will be putting out very soon, and some of the things that will be in there will just be what are some of your transportation concerns? How do you get to and from work? How do you get to and from recreation or healthcare or any of the things you do? And there'll be questions on barriers, but we should be distributing that probably here in the next few days. So stay tuned on the survey. Some of the other strategies that we're employing upcoming over the next month or so, municipal staff meetings. So we'll be going out to each of our communities, setting up meetings with staff to go over some of their ideas for their communities and some of the things that they're looking to do in the future for each community. So we can have that, and we can build kind of a call it a universe of projects and programs and ideas for the community. So that's upcoming over probably the next 2 months, setting up those meetings. In addition to that, we'll have meetings with neighborhood groups in Lowell, COAs. We have a meeting set up with UMass Lowell, as well as the LRTA and other stakeholders throughout the region. So we'll be doing these over a period of a few months from now until probably March. We also have a social media element to this. So please follow NIMCOG on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And we'll be posting all sorts of updates on our process. And, feel free to interact with us there as well. We'll be updating. Well, of course, the NIMCOG website will be updated and include all sorts of information as we move forward. In addition to that, come January or so, December, January, February, March, we're going to be looking to do more focus group type meetings. And these are meetings like focusing on specific modes of transportation, things like active transportation, bicycle and pedestrian, things like transit, things focused on freight transportation, for example, and many other as we move forward. So we're gonna offer those type of meetings, and if anyone has any feedback, feel free to just let me know on any kind of meetings that you would like us to take part in. So that will occur over a few months in the winter and early spring. And finally, and one of the interesting things that we're trying this year is something called Meeting in a Box, and that's where we develop materials on certain transportation issues, and we will make them available for distribution to different kind of community organizations that would like to try kind of running their own their own sort of meeting, and we'll be compiling those results once everything is completed, and including that in the plan as well. So really the goal here for our outreach is really to encourage the region and our communities to really believe the vision for this plan, and for us to show how NIMCOG, how the MPO can really help our communities improve transportation in the region. And we hope some of these strategies here will foster more participation, and you know, not only just in this regional transportation plan effort, but in you know, in the future with other efforts, because we really want to develop a long-standing relationship with everyone, and really work on collaboration and improve our relationships with everyone in the community. So now I'd like to turn it over to one of our transportation planners, Shivanti Kapalan-Narayanan, who will facilitate the group through a discussion, transportation issues that are important to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. We have two prompts for discussion today, and I'll first I'll read out the prompts one at a time, and we'll first hear from the virtual participants, and then we'll come to in-person participants. Virtual participants, please use the raise hand under reactions to take turns and comment on the prompts. In-person participants can raise your hand to participate in the discussion. First prompt is, what are your biggest transportation related concerns? Let's first hear from virtual participants. Chris?
Just whoever has a comment, if you're in real life, raise your hand, or if you are on the
Sure.
Zoom, you can use the raise hand function or type it in the chat.
Sure. I'll repeat the prompt again. What are your biggest transportation related concerns? Please feel free to raise your hand.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Ethan. I'm a resident of Lowell. I moved here very recently. And having moved here, I think my biggest transportation concern is the bus service frequency, and also the routes that they are currently taking, because some of them are rather convoluted to go from one place to another on a bus route. I didn't even try, because you would have to go to a transfer at the Gallagher, at the bus center, in order to go from one end of the city to another. So essentially, I only take the bus to work, because that's the only direct route. Everything else within Lowell, I don't have a car, so I either just don't move around or make the trip by foot. Thank you.
I've got one on Zoom now. Sorry if I mispronounce this, but Badri.
Hi. So I think the previous speaker alluded to quite a bit there, but as a resident of Chelmsford, it's about connectivity, number one, frequency, and the duration of operation of public transportation is definitely of the biggest concern points, specifically there. Accessibility is obviously connected to the connectivity portion and routes option that the previous speaker spoke of.
Thank you.
Liz Altman with the City of Lowell. I think one of our bigger transportation related concerns is just the conflicts between pedestrians and vehicles, and the frequency that is occurring, and making sure all modes of transportation are safer.
And I've got two in the Zoom chat. Again, apologies if I get the pronunciation wrong, but Marlies says, too much attention for vehicular traffic. Roads are still being widened, which invites more vehicles rather than improving traffic for active transportation. which truly reduces congestion. And Andrew Jennings says lack of alternatives to auto. And Mercy says, how long will it take? Where to park if it's a big city?
Erica Oliver Jerem, Director of Planning and Community Development for the town of Billerica. I want to see more awareness of alternative modes. I think that's already been mentioned, but also creating a culture of biking and walking in some of, especially in some of the suburban communities. Obviously, I speak for Billerica, but I'd like to see more options for that and more connectivity for non-automotive transportation.
My name is Kevin Coughlin. I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Lowell Workforce Board at Mass Hire. And our greatest concern, of course, is for employment in the region. And transportation, we find, is the number one concern. And Representative from Billerica just had an announcement in the Globe today of a major biomanufacturing facility that will be taking place in Billerica. And I'm sure they have the concern of how do you get a workforce there. And, the service area for Northern Middlesex Council of Governments has a lot of development that's taking place because there's land and there's campus development. Each of these facilities, the employers in the region, the private sector agencies, and indeed the community governments all have a very, very high need for employment. Transportation is the number one concern, bar none. And we are very happy to support you in your efforts here going forward. And we will have more comment as the night goes on, if the discussion continues on this topic. Thank you.
And I'd just like to remind everybody, for the Zoom participants, make sure to hold the microphone very close to your mouth. Are there any other Zoom participants who want to make a comment? Padri?
Yeah, one aspect that is appropriate to consider is, as part of the alternative modes, which primarily may translate into biking. It was pointed out about the roads and multimodal issues not being considered, but at the end of the day, there is also, even if there are certain constraints in that employees, when they reach their office, may not be able to take a shower, or depending on the distance that they take. So those kinds of facilities, ancillary facilities and scale, will also have to be considered, and as well as, how many people can get in at the same time. So that kind of multimodal zoning impact, as well as operational impact, are concerns for practical implementation.
Thank you so much for everybody's comment. We'll move on to the second prompt now. The second prompt is, how do you choose your mode of travel? Please feel free to raise your hand, whether you're virtual or in person.
While people are thinking, I've got one last comment from the last one, which is Mercy from Lowell Community Health Center, and that's the safety of young people when bicycling.
Hi, it's Ethan again. I'm not too sure how to answer this question because I feel like there's not much of a choice when it comes to transportation here. It's either you own a car and then you're able to move around the city, or you rely on wherever the bus routes take you and you follow the hourly schedule that is out there. you want to go to Boston, you take the commuter rail, which frequency at the highest is about 45 minutes. It's only every 2 hours over the weekend. So I find that this question we might need to think about this a little bit deeper. Thank you.
Paul Cohen, Town Manager, Chelmsford. To sort of follow up on that question, I think when you have a choice, it really is come down to your schedule. In other words, if you need to be somewhere at a certain time, that affects what mode you're choosing. So for example, if you're going into the city of Boston, you're making a choice, do I take the commuter rail or the automobile? It's going to come down to, you're right, what is the schedule availability in terms of your time needed to be someplace? Also, you're looking at congestion, which also affects your schedule. If you were going across town, across downtown Lowell here, it would depend upon your schedule. Can I afford to walk, or do I have to take a bicycle, or do I need to take an automobile, depending upon your scheduling conflict? So I think the follow-up on his answer is the same thought that I had, is a lot of your choice depends upon your schedule.
I've got two in the chat, one of them from Allie, citing cost, availability of modes, and the length of the trip. And from Mercy, who chooses the most that is convenient and one that saves time.
Liz Altman again from Lowell. I think also it's safety. Like if you don't feel safe walking from one place to another, you're not going to walk. You're going to get in your car just because you don't feel like you can make that trip in a safe manner.
Yeah, building on that, my name's Aurora. I live downtown and I work for the senior center in Lowell. Safety is a big factor in whether I decide to walk or drive, especially in the winter. I'm actually pretty willing to walk in cold weather, but I often don't feel safe walking in the winter because my path is not safe. Like my path is icy, my path is not shoveled. I'm walking in the road in the dark. And if that were safer, you'd get me to walk much more often.
We've got another one from the chat that's about safety. Safe and healthy commute and fitness training at the same time to save time.
I see no other hands.
Is there anybody else on the Zoom that had any final? Oh, Badri?
I think one comment I would make, which has been echoed but can be synthesized a bit better, it also boils down to the culture in which you grew up and the environment you grew up, and that exposes you to be taking a lot more adaptive thinking about how the mode of transportation is. In this current region, in the NAMCOG region, it's been pointed out there isn't much of an alternative available, and time cost takes a lot of time. But if you are adaptable when you go to another place, let's say Washington, DC, maybe to Metro San Francisco or to Amsterdam, you can do a lot of different modes of transportation if you're adapted to that. And so there's also a notion of building that culture coming in that is important to consider.
And I've got one final one from the chat as well. Thank you. Andrew just says, minimizing stress is a factor.
Any other final comments? Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for all your comments. We really appreciate it. I'll now pass it on to Jessica.
Thank you, Shivanti. Before I jump into the timeline, I just want to go over a couple of our goals for the community engagement strategies. Through this process, we really hope to encourage the community to believe in our vision, to build trust within the communities, and show how our organization is here to help. We want to improve closer participation in our communities and work towards each effort collaboratively. So we thank you all for being here. And as you can see on the screen, this is our timeline for the next year and a half. This month, we're having our kickoff and we'll have our survey available. In December, we'll be holding municipal meetings across the NEMCOG region. We'll also be meeting with UMass Lowell and LRTA. We will be conducting our mode-based focus groups through the months of December, January, and February and March. In the month of March, we will have a draft of our plan developed. In June, we will present our draft plan to the MPO for public comment. The public comment period will last 21 days. And then in July, we'll present the comments once integrated and the final plan for endorsement. And I'd also like to share with everyone that after this meeting, we will be sending a link to our recording. We'll also be following up with the survey link for you to remain engaged in our public planning process, and look out for an email with a recap and next steps and how to continue to stay engaged on this effort. I'll pass it over to Jenny.
All right. Well, thank you for all of the participation that we had this evening, both on Zoom and in the room. I am just opening it up to see if there are any just general questions, but also to say that to follow on to everything that you heard from my colleagues, if you are interested in hosting a meeting, or if you think that there's a place where we could make a presentation and engage with people to talk about transportation priorities, either in your community or across the region, we really need that feedback tonight. So if you know of if there's a group that's really into bicycling, or a walking group, or some other, a group that likes the trails and pathways, or a group that's specifically advocating for bus service, any of those types of things would be great. But also just generally, if you're interested, we talked about the meeting in a box. That is something that just is basically a meeting that has maybe 3 or 4 discussion prompts, and you can have a discussion with anybody you want to about transportation issues in the region, and just return the results of those communications and that conversation back to us. And we can utilize that as part of our participatory process. But we're open to anything that you would be willing to do to help us to, again, we want to build on the engagement. We don't plan on having multiple meetings like this. This is our launch meeting. We're looking to do many more things to get people to understand the importance of both transportation, and it sounds like transportation alternatives in the region was really what I heard very loud and clear tonight, and the importance of not just making those alternatives happen and become a reality, but also to create and maybe change the culture around looking at and feeling safe and comfortable utilizing those alternatives, as well as focusing on the bus and bus service and other things of that nature. So a lot of that in many ways relies on you, and we hope that you'll stay engaged. And if you want to continue with a meeting in a box or other opportunities, we would love to hear from you about that. But in the meantime, are there any other just general questions that anybody has this evening? I'll walk over.
Thank you. So hi again. I was wondering, how closely are you working with the Lowell 2040 Master Plan at this point? Because I'm part of the steering committee, and I sort of just learned about this by walking past City Hall the other day and saw a poster, but other than that, the information wasn't really communicated to that committee.
That's an excellent question. Chris Hayes from our staff is actually also on the committee overseeing the master planning process. And we'll be working directly with the city on the housing component actually of that plan. So maybe if it's okay with you, could you speak to how transportation or other elements come into that planning process? If you're comfortable. The integration of local planning with regional planning is tricky, right? The city of Lowell, Chelmsford, all of our communities do localized planning, and it hopefully emphasizes and picks up on the cues that are happening across the region. I'm certain that the city wants to do that. And so this process in many ways will be piggybacking on what they're doing, but it might be moving a little bit more quickly than that. And there's probably other opportunities for us to overlap, which we're open to hearing and learning more about. We also have a City of Lowell staff person here this evening. So there's many ways I think in which we can make sure that there's a connection. Chris, do you want to add anything?
The only thing I was going to say is I see my role on the master plan committee as taking all of the ideas and discussion that the city is having and taking it to NIMCOG and taking it to all the other communities for our planning processes, and also taking all of that feedback back to the city. So there'll be a two-way communication.
It's a really good question though. Thank you.
I've got
Oh, yeah, one in the Zoom room.
question on Zoom, unless there was something else specifically about that. Okay. Badri has had his hand up for a long time now, so can go ahead.
Thank you. I just put my hand up in advance so that I can get an opportunity whenever it is possible. But I did post a question up front. I think one comment is, and it's been touched upon by the previous speaker here from Lowell, I think, is that zoning and planning or siting of businesses across multiple towns is a very localized operation right now. And unless we break that chain a bit, transportation or connectivity for different kinds of services may be impacted, because if somebody has to travel 3 miles over a hilly region or area versus somebody that's very close, these kinds of things, services are important. And a classic example is gas stations today are all clustered together. You would see many of the grocery stops all clustered together, so to speak. They're all based on game theory, but we have to learn to probably incentivize distributed functions across the place, and the business models incentives to be able to spread them out so that locally people can access much more of the needed services within short transportation, alternate transportation capacities and capabilities. So that's just a comment, and I don't know how that will happen, but it's probably needs to start now if we've got to solve something for 2050, because it takes very long to demolish old buildings.
Yes, we appreciate that comment. Thank you for that. And yes, this is always an iterative process, and there's much to do. It doesn't just, we're not just waiting to get things done. Things are happening all of the time. And of course, there are things that we need to respond to and react to much more quickly. So I appreciate that comment.
Thank you. Kevin Coughlin again. As you proceed with your focus groups and you proceed to facilitate in the different areas of the region, Mass Hire would be glad to volunteer to assist with that in reaching out, especially to private sector problems and the employment issues for that. So we would be glad to take a lead on that and volunteer for your organization. And we have a board member on Mass Hire and Chris Hayes. So I think the synergy will be very good. In addition to that, I just wanted to mention that in January, Mass Hire will be initiating a major transportation effort. Still a work in progress for planning, but would like to invite other Middlesex Council of Governments to be a part of that as we reach out and all work together in synergy with all of our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Wow. Anybody else want to just jump in? Yes. Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ryan. I'm state representative. I just want to more of a comment than anything else. Very excited about the Rock Bridge, and it took us quite a bit, and hopefully we'll get this sooner than later. And I got plenty of call asking when is the walkway going to be done and the bike path. That's what I got every day. So that's hopefully that'll be in the mix. On behalf of that as well, my chief of staff, Simone Chow, is in the room as well. I'm here to help in any way that I possibly can. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me personally on any account. Again, thank you for the work that you are doing, and I hope to connect in many levels. On top of that, I'm sorry I have to run to the next event, and this is why I take this time to say hi. Congratulations.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, please, onto the Zoom room.
In the spirit of partners, Chelmsford Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee is happy to partner in hosting a discussion. And then Mercy mentions, please be sure to incorporate the voices of non-English speakers, as well as those that do not own personal cars.
Eric Oliver, Jerem, Town of Billerica. Just wanted to, I came from the MassDOT Moving Together conference yesterday, and one of the sessions I went to was on micro transit. Don't have any opinions on it. I just thought I'd mention it so it gets into your notes and we can have a discussion about it. I also wonder if we could make sure we talk about ride share and bike share as part of this as well. Thanks.
The scooters, all the micro mobility options.
Belinda Duran, Lowell resident. A comment and a question. I know you mentioned that you're reaching out to UMass Lowell. I would think Middlesex Community College has some unique transportation needs, so they may also be worth reaching out to. And then just a question. So this is the Envision 2050 plan, but if I understood correctly, the plan has to get updated every 4 years. So 4 years from now, we'll be looking at the 2054 plan. I'm just trying to understand sort of how the timelines match up. Thank you.
Gee, that's a good question. I'll give it a try real quick. And then Justin, you can fill in the blanks if I missed anything. So the 4 years is based on our transportation funding, the federal funding that we receive. And so we're programming it every 4 years. So right now, for example, we have the Transportation Improvement Program, which Justin was referencing, or Jessica was actually referencing in her slides. Also, the Unified Planning Work Program is basically the types of studies that we need to do over the course of that period of time in order to achieve some of those. It might be a TIP project, it might be some other type of project, but we do the programming for that every 4 years. And so yes, we then actually change the regional transportation plan to unite the TIP projects with the regional plan. The next plan could be actually more like 2055 and then probably 2060, because we basically take it a couple of years out. The other reason to do the change is because demographics and our population projections also change. And we aim to unify them with a broader urban area. Actually, we do a lot of the demographics and population projections planning work with multiple other regional planning agencies, mostly led by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. And that feeds into a lot of our estimates around transportation planning over the course of a number of years. So that's basically the federal framework for transportation planning. Did I miss anything? Anything else you want to add? Justin has been running the program for 20 years, so I will let him fill in the blank.
Not running for 20 years, but yeah, that was a very good explanation. What the only other issue is, because this is federal funding, at the federal level, the government will usually put out a transportation bond bill, typically every 4 to 5 years. So the current bill that we're on actually ends in 2026, and that's a new bill from our previous one. So typically we get new allocations, new dollar amounts. So that kind of changes how we approach spending over the life of the regional transportation plan. And it is just it's a federal requirement that we update the plan every 4, and starting with the next one, we'll probably move to a 5-year cycle. So.
Thank you for those questions. And are there others on Zoom? No? Others in the room? All right. Well,
Would,
others? Yes. Go ahead.
no, just prompting if there's anybody else on Zoom, they can raise their hand like Stephanie just did.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Cronin with the Middlesex 3 Coalition, and we run the Middlesex 3 Transportation Management Association. One thing is we're happy to host a meeting with the private sector and our transportation committee. But my question is, you guys did a study for us, and Justin was, I think, led that study as well too, where you came up with a number of recommendations for improving transportation in the region, including things like mobility hubs and some of the easier short-term issues. But there were some other larger issues like improving connections with the TMA or transportation agencies outside the NEMCOG region as well too, including like in the Burlington area, where I know you have buses that go down there, but it's trickier because of the funding and the funding formula. So that was one, and then there was an issue with the number of buses that you're able to have as well too, because of federal regulations. And so I'm wondering if that's part of, just going back to look at that study and those recommendations, if that's going to be part of this as well.
we'll be looking at, what we've accomplished with our current regional transportation plan and also going back to any studies that we've done. Any other, actually looking at local plans where we talk about transportation goals and priorities, and any other supplemental studies or, analyses that might be helpful to us in this whole entire development of the regional transportation plan process. So I think for sure, Stephanie will take a look at that, and as well as the other documents that I referenced. I would also say that if there are other resources that people are aware of, studies, reports, plans, analyses, engineering work, other types of analyses of intersections, there could be a lot of different things that you may assume we have all of that information, but anything like that would be helpful to us as we develop this next plan. Anything else from that? Okay. All right, well, I will see if we're ready again to wrap up. Is there more? We have, do we have a representative from Marky's office here this evening as well on the Zoom or in the room?
Yes, I believe we had a representative from Senator Markey's office and from Representative Trahan's office.
Excellent. Well, thank you for attending. We greatly appreciate all of the attendance this evening and all of the input. And I want to thank the NIMCOG team for all of their efforts this evening. A round of applause, please, for the team. All right, thank you all. And with that, I'm going to say goodnight, and we hope to see you again at a future event as we develop the plan.
Okay, thanks for everybody who joined us to Zoom, and we'll be logging off now.